morning, Governor, and thanks for joining us this morning as we review The Rise, the Dawn, in the War for the Planet of the Apes, otherwise known as...
The Caesar Cycle.
The Caesar Cycle. Yeah, that's what they actually called it. The production company called it the Caesar Cycle internally.
Huh.
The anticipation for this week's theatrical release of the movie The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We're going to review the first three movies in the franchise while looking at the deeper theological and spiritual themes. Like usual, we'll start with a spoiler-free review, followed by a spoiler-filled review, filled to the brim, as we have our morning coffee. My daughter made this.
Looks very good.
She did it for this. She said, "Daddy, could you show this, please, in your live stream?" So I'm showing this. All right, this is from my daughter. So we did a review of the original Planet of the Apes. This is way back in 1968, and they had a series of movies that came out after that. And in this review, we went through and we talked about several things. And the interesting thing about that is it's the series that we're looking at today is not really a remake.
Not really.
Of that at all. I was a little surprised when I first watched the first movie in the reboot version that it wasn't. I thought it was going to be a reboot. There's no astronauts here. They don't land. And the original, as we covered in our review on the original series, was more of a movie-length Twilight Zone episode because there was the big twist in the end. And spoiler, I'm going to give you a spoiler for that if you haven't seen it. You got the Statue of Liberty, and it's so iconic now. You even see it in the.
So many other things have spoiled it since then.
Yeah,
that's almost common.
It's become a part of our American tradition, I think, showing that. No, darn you. So, but that was the first movie that we have in this trilogy was not a remake of that. It had nothing to do with astronauts. So, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This story follows Caesar, a genetically enhanced chimpanzee, as he develops both intellectually and emotionally due to human experimentation. As Caesar grows in intelligence, he begins to question his place in the world, ultimately leading to a conflict between humans and apes. I would rate this an 8 from a scale from 1 to 10. I thought it was well done. I thought the buildup of the emotion that's with the ape, that you really do feel a following for him. I think there's a real empathy that's built up for the main character, Caesar, and also for the scientist, Will, who goes through I'm being spoiler-free now, some things that he's doing with this. But I thought it was pretty good. How would you rate it from 1 to 10?
I would probably do an 8 as well because it's solid as far as the acting, the emotions are put in there, even in the ape itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's got a good bit of mixture of emotionally driven, as well as the concepts that it's touching on are very, very interesting.
Okay.
How they handle that.
Well, you probably know, we're going to go over a little bit of trivia on this, but you probably know this, but the actor behind the CGI makeup is, for Caesar, is Andy Serkis. And he also played another character that he's well known for. Now, in describing and watching the show with two of my kids, where they're going through, and I had to explain and say, hey, guys, listen, these chimpanzees, these guys adopted this chimpanzee basically, and was that?
Go ahead.
I don't think it's too much of a spoiler.
They're very dangerous.
They are very dangerous.
Very, very.
And
dangerous.
I was describing about how a woman had basically had. I'm not going to describe it now because it's so brutal. But I did tell my kids this is what happened to her. She barely survived, and she had to have a face transplant surgery. I think she was one of the first to have a face transplant. It was because this chimpanzee that was kept as a pet just went nuts and tore into her. They're very strong, very wirely. And so I'm explaining to the children. I said, imagine Gollum, the character Gollum, but bigger, maybe 3 times bigger than Gollum. And that kind of massive, out of control strength, just wrapping himself around you or whatever. That's what we're dealing with a chimpanzee. Now, not all the apes in this series were chimpanzees, but Caesar was. And so it was kind of funny when I say, "Hey, you guys know who did the actor behind Caesar?" Yeah, and he also did Gollum. So it was kind of funny with that. There was another point of trivia there too. The director liked the actress, not an actor, but an actress played Maurice, which is the orangutan.
Interesting.
That's in here. It's. I thought it was a dude, but it's a dudess. The actress who played the orangutan, the director liked her so much that he gave her a role of a secondary character. And you may have recognized her as the stubborn clerk who gave Will a hard time about filing for his appeal. And so, yeah, she got a live acting role in there as well and didn't have the CGI makeup. But that was pretty cool.
There are also a lot of references. If you watch the original, and then watch this one, they did so many
like Easter egg
things. You've got to pay attention. There are a lot of references.
Yes, we'll cover a couple of those when we get to the spoiler section. But spoiler-free section, we'll kind of.
Oh no, I just wanted to hint at it. Yeah. Man, if you guys sit down and watch the original and then watch this one, there's a lot of parallels you guys can pick up on that are a lot.
That's true.
Of fun.
So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes came out in 2014. In this movie, tensions between the intelligent apes led by Caesar and a group of human survivors in a post-apocalyptic world collide, and they conflict. And both sides struggle to coexist. Misunderstandings and fear escalate, pushing them towards a dangerous confrontation that could determine the fate of both species. Again, this is the description, spoiler-free description, and kind of a build-up for it. I'm not going to say what actually happened with this. What would you rate this from 1 to 10?
I think it hits some really good concepts, so I definitely put this maybe at a 7, just below the other one.
Why below the other one?
I think the discovery, the setting of the environment, handling the reason why these apes are intelligent and all of that is very interesting at the beginning, but then they handle different concepts in this one.
Right. So that the original discovery would have boosted it up to and that's what the first one had.
Yeah.
The second one, I would agree with rating it as a 7. I think there were some continuity, not so much continuity, but believability issues that were in the second one. I believe it was a really good story about a post-apocalyptic society where you do have 2 sentient species that are battling it out, and the whole thing with fear as being and misunderstanding as being a driving force in their conflicts.
And I would say unforgiveness is something that's critical in this one.
Right. Trying to bridge that gap. And when we get to the spoiler section, we'll talk more about that. Trivia question. Now that there was another actor in here, I kind of want to point out, there's so many things behind the scenes that are going on. So it was kind of hard to choose with this. But what do you do after you're a top pick, a top collegiate pick with athletic scholarships to Berkeley, West Point, Stanford, and UCLA, and you're a 4-time NCAA All-American captain on the gymnastics team? What do you do after all that happens? What happens to your career? Well, this guy, Terry Notary, was one of those. So what does he do? Well, he comes as a consultant for a lot of acrobatic type stuff that are being done on set with different movies. He's a consultant with this on several movies. And then eventually he gets pulled in and he becomes Rocket, one of the apes that's a close companion to Caesar. And he's like this really strong dude. If you look at him, it's like this ape works out. And definitely this guy works out too. But he has a little bit of familiarity with apes, shall we say, because yes, he has done this before. He played Kong.
Huh.
He was Kong. So he did another
bit bigger.
It's like, let's just roll this in. We got this guy for this one. The next one in the series is War for the Planet of the Apes. This came out in 2017. It follows Caesar as he grapples with his inner turmoil while leading his fellow apes in a battle against the ruthless Colonel and his human army. As conflicts intensify, Caesar must navigate moral complexities and personal vendettas to ensure that the survival of his kind and secure their place in the changing world. What would you give this one from 1 out of 10?
I give it a 7. I give it the same.
You and I are like we're not always on with the rating. Sometimes we're off by quite a bit, but this one is definitely.
I'd say primarily because this deals again with a lot of the same topics that the other one does, but from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So this is almost a continuation of the last movie, not only as part of the series, but part of some of the moral dilemmas that were in the last one show their face in this one again, but from a different perspective.
Yeah, I would say it was not we're not just redoing this, not redoing the second movie. There, like you said, there's a different take and a different angle on it, and it had to do. I think I could say this without it being a spoiler. With like I mentioned in here, a vendetta with dealing with revenge.
But that's aren't we on War of the Planet of the Apes, not Dawn?
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you saw that because that was different.
Down, I was like, wait, hold on.
That's right. So trivia with War of the Planet of the Apes, and not Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Primatologists who saw the film said the apes' behavior was surprisingly realistic. Karen Kanoval, now that she was the one who played the orangutan, right? Maurice. Karen Kanoval's performance as Maurice, the orangutan, was especially noteworthy. So these are primatologists that look at this who are working with apes all the time to say, wow, you guys really hit this. You were dead on. The second point of trivia was the name of the rebel human army is Alpha Omega. And it's shown on their logo. Their logo is shown on their helmets and their flag. And in the second movie of the original Planet of the Apes series, the human mutants worshipped an atomic bomb named Alpha Omega. Director Matt Reeves confirmed this is where the name came from. So this is a throwback. There's several throwbacks that they have in here. This is one of those pieces that are throwing back to, I think it was Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It was the name of the movie that came from. Now, I kind of chafed at this a little bit because the name Alpha Omega is one of the names of God in the Christian tradition. It comes from the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet and is intended to symbolize God's eternal nature. So when I saw this, but you could see where a bomb is like, this is the bomb to end all. And so you say you could just call it the Omega bomb. It wouldn't really make sense having it the Alpha bomb.
Yeah, it's not like it's created.
No. That would be like
created from it.
No, that'd be like the Genesis device from Star Trek. Was it Star Trek 2? 3. 3? I forget. No, that is 2. The Wrath of Khan.
The Trekkie has failed.
So we're going to head into our spoiler section now. If you've not seen...
You want to catch the comments?
Yes. Before we head into the spoiler section, we're going to look at comments. Holy cow. Holy cow. Guys, please forgive me. I blew them through right through the comments. So let's hit it from the beginning. And we'll skip all the introductions. I like this. Christ Opportunidad said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. I don't think Jesus was talking about an ape.
He wants a banana.
Okay. Star Wars character, Lord of the Rings.
Is Lord of the Rings. He's talking about Gollum.
Did I say Star Wars character when I said that?
I hope not.
I might have slipped and said Star Wars character instead.
I'm
on a roll this morning. Yeah.
Wow. You're
Wow.
supposed to be a good nerd.
Rationality rules. Buta make an appearance in the next movie if he keeps saying "my fellow apes" to his followers. I have no. You catch that one?
Abuta. No.
I'm sure it's very deep, but I just have no idea what you're saying. Chimps always go for the jaw. Get a dog instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're also a lot more loyal.
Yeah.
Not so crazy.
Although we're going to be hitting the spoiler section here, so I got to bad ape.
Bad ape.
Bad ape.
Bad ape.
Bad ape.
Bad ape.
That was a good
character.
one. He was a bit of a comic relief finally in the movie. Thomas Hall, can your dog ride a horse and wage war?
I'm not thinking that's a positive.
Yeah, and
I don't want my pet going out on war campaigns against my neighbor.
I don't know. You know, having a war companion dog would not be bad. You know, but I don't think I want.
Well, yeah, but he's not saying going to war with you. He's talking about raging war itself.
Okay, that's true. Prowl 32 said, "Isn't that the orangutan from Jungle Book?" Almost looks at it. They did. You know what? I think Maurice was my. I like Caesar. I really do like Caesar, but Maurice was my favorite.
I'd say overall, because he's in all of them.
Yeah.
So I'd say Maurice would be my second. I do like Caesar more, but he's a good companion to have.
Definitely.
The sage.
Yep.
He definitely fills the role of the sage throughout all of them. And I think he pulls it together well.
Right. I think you're right. Paul Williams said, are we able to see Planet of the Apes 68 review on your YouTube channel? I'll look for it. And it said it was removed to... Oh. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for bringing that up. I thought it was... Of course, I can see it. And we did get a copyright claim on that. I've got to be extremely careful with showing some of the videos. I do not have any video clips prepared for this one. I didn't have time, unfortunately. Ran out of time. But on the 68 version, I had a whole bunch, man. They were all stacked up. There was boom, boom, boom. There were some great arguments that were in everything. And it got pulled because I think it may have been going over a 30-second mark or something. I'm not sure exactly why. This is shotgun. Sometimes you watch some people's video, and they have these long things of all these long clips. I'm thinking, how did they do this?
Oh, they might have already gone through the fight.
Yeah.
Because, fair use is something that YouTube's not the best at. And even though you're doing a review and it's all fair use and definitely falls in that category,
right?
YouTube automates everything. And if it gets caught by the automated enforcers, then you have to wait.
So
wait.
So I thought it was already out of review. Apparently it is. There's 30 days. The company that holds the copyright can make it, can fight you over it, and it can go back and forth. And it's very careful. And sometimes you can say, "Oh, I've done this in the past," where I say, just take it out. You have the option of taking that clip out altogether. But I looked at this afterwards and I said, if I do this, the comments we make and everything, it'll ruin it. It'll be so cut up, it won't make sense in watching the video. So I said, I've got to keep them in there. And so I said, okay, I'm going to fight this fair use. Unfortunately, what it does is it pull it down. And that's bad for us because I was using this as a buildup for what the movie that's coming out this Thursday. So we did these reviews. We were going to do the 2001 Planet of the Apes, but we put that up for poll. And basically, you guys were saying, listen, we rather have Three Body Problem than the Mark Wahlberg version of Planet of the Apes, which I didn't really think was so bad. But
I didn't think it was bad. It just
didn't do too well.
But if you went in with the expectations of this being similar to the original, I think you would have been vastly disappointed.
Yeah, I think this version, this reboot, is better than the Mark Wahlberg one. It's more of that was kind of the typical Hollywood one, but
where they just redid everything.
Yeah, but anyway, the 2000 the original 1968 version. When I was a kid, I watched a lot of those, and I was really into it and stuff like this. And we had a place that was near us where I grew up in Southern California that was the original lot that 20th Century Fox owned. they still had some of the props there, and it wasn't open to the public. My uncle got us access. There was nobody out there, and we were all playing on like the original props. We're crawling around and stuff like that. It's really cool.
In other words, he comes from the Planet of the Apes.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay.
He grew up on the Planet.
So sorry, I don't mean to be long-winded about this, but this is a very good point. Sometimes this happens. I've had this happen before, and there's a lot of work that actually goes into these live streams behind the scenes. And I was very disappointed that it got pulled. So eventually, it will come back out. It'll make. It should be available, I think.
Once it comes back out and it is available, because there's no way that someone will look at that and say, no, that's not fair use. Once they do that, you could link it to the bottom, put it in the description. And if it's out, guys, and you're watching this after this live stream, you can go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to be able to announce it, because once these videos come out after a couple of weeks, it's like they're basically dead. I mean, they're still available, but they're not. Community. Okay, I'll put it on the community set. Okay, sorry, but very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I wasn't aware of that. Christ Opportunity. I love saying your name. Christ Oportunidad said, just with the D, the TH for the D at the end of Oportunidad. I like to think that writers saw that one video with the monkeys grabbing an AK-47, aiming it at people, and decided to make a whole franchise out of it. There was one scene in the second movie where you do have the ape Kobo who gets a hold of I believe it's an AK-47, but it's probably an M16 since this is military.
Yeah, that was M16.
What's that?
Yeah, M16.
Because it was U.S. military issue and not okay. So, but either way, he grabs a hold of it and stuff like that. And I don't think they made the whole franchise based off of that, but that was it was a shocking scene. Something that was just like boom, unexpected. Star Trek 2. Thank you, fellow Trekkie. I have fallen off the wagon and you have resurrected. You have pulled me back up. I appreciate it. Paul Williams said Maurice the orangutan was named after an actor who played Dr. Zaius in the original film, Maurice Evans. I didn't know that. And he was an orangutan. We did do him in the review. We do talk about him in our review that's not available. But that's an interesting point of trivia. Appreciate that. Yes, and we are all laughing. I don't know what you're laughing at. I just want to explain the comment. I asked David Wood about it. Just ask David Wood about it. Maybe you can ask him about it. His original comment. So sorry. This must be a inside apologetic humor that I did not get. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Yes. And he has bananas on that one. Okay.
So I guess, guys, as far as the original review that we did that was taken down due to copyright claims, not due to any legitimate ones. I guess the moral of that is watch it live, because then you get to watch the actual thing. True.
Not everybody is, because we do this during a lot of people's work hours. But yeah, if you can, live, we can put whatever we want, well, with an exception. And then it would hit. I do not want to violate copyright. I want to give due to people who put hard work into their art, and want to give them proper due to what they have. But sometimes it can be a little over the top with some of the. And we were reviewing these, right? This should be considered.
That's specifically under fair use law.
Okay.
That's now reviews.
Now we are officially starting the spoilers section. And this is a spoiler-filled review looking at the rise, the dawn, and the war of the Planet of the Apes. First one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, spoiled edition. Theatrical review. What we do is we usually take a theatrical review, and then we look at the golden nugget of this program is to look at do a thematic review and pull these themes out with from a Christian perspective and say, this can be used to talk about Christ. This can be used to point towards these eternal matters, one way or another. And we do have some of those that we're going to pull out. And those are I believe, the best part. But in order to get to that, we must take a further analysis of the story. And so the first one then, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 2011. The theatrical review would be, the first time I saw this, I was expecting, like I said earlier, I was expecting this to be more of just a reboot and not an origin story. The first movie really shows where it all came from. And then I thought, well, this is really good because it gets deeper, but it deviates from the original. The original was, I think there was some kind of nuclear holocaust they're doing. That's fine. In the 1960s, everybody, the big scare was nuclear war. Now the big scare is biological war or biolab accidents, things like that happening.
There would never be any unknown element that may have been released accidentally or purposefully from such said biological facility.
No, that would never happen. That's a fantasy.
Fantasy never would happen in reality.
And if this was a YouTube live stream 2 years ago, we would definitely be saying it could not be a lab leak at all. Okay. But the best thing about, I think, this original movie was the connection with Caesar. If you see this, you really do have, I believe, unless you're really like hard-hearted, you really do have a strong connection with this poor ape. He starts off as this baby. His mother's been killed. He's being rescued by the scientist, Will, brought home and raised. And that's what makes it so different. So this series so different from the original 1968 version. That one was more like a Twilight Zone twist at the end. Not a whole lot of character development. It didn't need character development. It wasn't that type of movie. It was a movie of discovery where the audience was intended to realize this is Earth at the end, when the main character, the astronaut, realizes, played by Charlton Heston, that he sees the Statue of Liberty at the end, and his classic, "Darn you all to heck." I'm censoring this for small children. You know, why you've done this, you've ended the human race, so to speak. But in this one, it's not nuclear holocaust that does it. It's a biological, a bio leak that does it. In this movie, although the protagonist, the scientist Will Rodman, through him, we bond with Caesar during his transformation, and the point of view switches. I don't know if you notice this, but the point of view, and it seems like the protagonist switches from Will to Caesar. I didn't realize this until I started to give it a hard look. But once Caesar then is brought over to the little mini zoo that he's given over to him, he has to, by court order, has to give Caesar up to this group. Once it happens, we start seeing things more and more from Caesar's point of view, and he becomes the protagonist. I don't know many movies that have that kind of switch.
I would actually have said that Caesar is the protagonist from the beginning.
He couldn't be, because he was a baby.
He was in his mother's.
Well, okay.
So it would have been introduced.
See, I would disagree with that. And there is a switch. Is anybody aware of any other movie where there's a switch like this, where the protagonist alters? And it was done, like I said, it was done so smoothly. I didn't catch it. I'm starting to follow Caesar more and more throughout the movie.
No, I think it was well handled. The characters in this one were much more believable than in the original. There are so many issues in the original. The characters and why they're there and what on earth is even happening.
Yes, and we do cover that in our censored video. I felt Caesar's anger when the neighbor, played by David Hewlett, you may remember him from Stargate Atlantis, attacked Charles Rodman, played by John Lithgow. And you see this happening. He goes out there. The poor guy is dementia, just suffering for dementia. Goes out there and sees a car. He's not able to car. It's a Mustang, right? Beautiful, beautiful car. He gets in behind the driver's seat, and for whatever reason, the keys are left in there, right? Mm-hmm. And he starts smashing against other cars that are right there. and the neighbor's a real jerk, right? You just see what's going to happen. And my daughter watching this said, oh, she knew what was going to happen. Says, oh no. And then Caesar comes out and just does the whole, again, Gollum. The kids were laughing. It's like, yeah, it goes for his finger.
Well, the whole point was the finger was what he was using. He's pointing. He was actually physically hitting. There's actually a lot of restraint that Caesar was using in that scene.
Yeah.
Even there, because he didn't go just like, I'm going to kill you. It was very specific on, okay, you're threatening my family with this. You're hitting my family with this finger. I'm going to take this finger.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Yeah. But we were laughing because we were thinking, it is Gollum. He doesn't. And from what I understand, the director, they decided not to have him actually bite off the finger, but I couldn't tell that I thought he did.
I thought he did.
Yeah. So
he just bit it.
Yeah. It was a no-win situation. Once Caesar matured, what were you going to do? Full-grown chimpanzees are dangerous animals. And unlike Caesar, who had intelligence, who could control his emotions and outrage and everything, but you wouldn't really know that, right?
No, you would not. From his perspective, from the neighbor's perspective, you wouldn't know that.
No, and I'm even talking about Will, the scientist, not even knowing for sure, as much as he really cared for Caesar as his own son. His father reverted and got worse. No. I'm talking about Will's father.
Oh,
who had Alzheimer's, right? And he got worse. It just progressed. It just got worse and worse. What would happen? What happens if all of a sudden one morning he wakes up and Caesar has reverted to his natural state and then went nuts? Yeah. So it was just inevitable that this was a relationship cannot continue. So even if he was an intelligent ape, he couldn't live in the attic this whole time. This is not his natural environment. He needs to get out. And one other point of trivia, too, I don't know if you've seen this, but you probably were aware of this. Their eyes change. They mentioned the eyes, not just the color, the white of the eyes, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're laughing about? Or
no, the bright eyes reference?
Oh, there is a bright eyes reference because it does turn it green, but also the white of the eyes. If you look at apes, they're dark around the iris.
Yeah.
And if you have an ape with white around the iris, that ape looks more human and more intelligent. There actually is one ape in captivity that has that aberration.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. I should have looked it up, but he does, and he's actually kind of popular and famous. But it gives that ape the appearance of more intelligence. Subconsciously, we will look at it and say, I can communicate to this is not an animal. So then Maurice signs to Caesar. He says, careful, humans don't like smart apes. And then you have the whole thing about the virus and how prescient this was about COVID, about being released from a lab. It was not Wuhan, but it was another lab, and how it just hit, ramshot through all the human race. And basically, I would say, I'm not sure what the population ratio was after. You really see that in the next movie. There's a couple of Easter eggs here, and you wanted to hit some Easter eggs. I want to throw this one in here. There's one of the zoo hands is watching the original Planet of the Apes on TV. I don't know if you caught that or not. Did you see that?
Well, I thought that was either that or it was Moses. I couldn't tell which one it was.
Oh, well, Charleston Heston plays Moses too. Is that what you're talking about?
I was wondering if that was that or if it was the actual Planet of the Apes, the original.
And then this may be one too that you're going to say, and I was going to clip it as a video, but ran out of time. Take your darn hands off me, you stinking ape.
Oh, yes.
And he looks back at him and says, no. It's the first time he speaks out loud.
First time Caesar speaks. Yeah, that was
this.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Now, there was another part in there. I got a little excited. I didn't recognize it, I think, too much the first time through. But the Icarus program is mentioned. And this is a space program that is a manned launch to Mars. Okay, so I didn't say how many people were on there, probably 3. And then later you see in news articles saying that they were lost in space. I don't know if this is a hook for something coming out later, but it definitely didn't materialize in the trilogy.
No, it didn't materialize in the trilogy. This definitely seemed to be indication of the original, at least in some regard, or throwback to it. Another one was before Caesar goes out there and bites the finger. What he's doing in his room is making Statue of Liberty.
Oh yes,
a little statue, putting together a Statue of Liberty.
That. I did see that. Though.
And there's a lot of little Easter eggs as you go through this movie. Definitely, if you watch the original and then sit down and watch this one, there's a lot of those.
So a lot of there's a lot of emotional heartstrings that are being pulled here. We would have at the very end of the movie, I would have liked to have seen Will come back for a visit, set up some kind of say, hey man, I want to come back and visit sometime, because I'm saying goodbye, but you know, just like any child going out to live on his or her own, you want to see, you know, come and visit your mother and father sometime. You never call.
Well, I think the reason why is explained in the next one.
What did they say for that?
Well, okay.
I got you.
The next movie.
Yeah, okay.
See what the comments.
All right. So I do want to make
say.
one more statement here. Then we'll look at the comments. Caesar seems like a child in terms of his innocence, and his intentions are pure, but misguided or misunderstood. Unlike the mostly exploitive, cruel, and inhumane humans. Inhumane. So comments. Take a look at what you guys have to say here. I want put this up. I want a prequel or origin story where Caesar is the superior of the Roman Empire. Okay, dude, you're having way too much fun here. Yes, I could see that as a spoof or something. Well, I looked for how it should have ended on this. I didn't see any.
No how. So.
I wonder why they didn't do that on these.
Don't know.
Oh, maybe they have to get rights or something to be able to do it. But it's a parody. You shouldn't be able to.
It's fair use.
Yeah.
Parodies are fair use.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't do it. Thomas Hall said Psycho from Hitchcock was a similar switch. He loved playing against the audience expectations. Good point. So it starts off as, I don't remember her name, but she was the victim. She's the one that gets stabbed in the shower and everything like that. It's from her point of view, I believe, in the beginning of the story. And then it goes to Bates, Harold Bates. It goes to the killer. Or is it from the killer or is it from the detective's point of view? I don't know.
I've never watched it.
I'd have to go back. Oh, it's classic. It's classic. I'd have to go back and take a look
a review on it.
Yeah. Well, it's on Sci-Fi, so I don't know if you'd really want to. Christ Opportunity Dodd said, have they checked if that white-eyed ape can ride a horse? So we're screwed. Dude, you're on a roll. That's a good question. He's secretly teaching all the other apes how to speak, and he has this medicine that he's giving them. So they're going to have to keep a close eye on him, see if his irises turn green. Next, we have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, otherwise known as If You Betray Me Every Time I Trust You, I'm not going to give you my bananas anymore. I'm going to keep them to myself. Caesar learns that not all humans are evil. Again, this is 10 years later, and the human race has been decimated. Now, there's a storytelling problem here. Okay, so from an author's point of view, look at this and say, the strength that you have with the first story is twofold. One, you have the discovery, like what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What happened with this whole origin story type of thing. We've already had our origin story, so the draw of that is done. Another thing that's missing is Will is gone. Right?
Yeah.
That great connection you had between father, son, so to speak, between the two is missing. All you're left with is Caesar. And now what's going to happen? And the challenge to the writers and director on this is, how are we going to find another place to put those emotions. How are we going to be able to pull the audience in and still want Caesar? We want to see, the audience probably does want to see what happens next to Caesar, but is that enough to carry the story? So the story starts with the background news clips of the pandemic. And this is what we were led to believe that COVID was going to be like during its, I think about, 3% mortality. In this movie, there was actually much higher than that. So you had all this hyped up fear.
0.2. I did the calculations on it. The survival rate was 0.2%.
No, not survival. Oh, you're talking about in the survival for the, I thought you were talking about COVID. I thought,
no, 0.2% survival rate. Only 0.2% of the people who got it. You had a 99.8% fatality rate.
Yeah.
This monkey virus.
Yeah, patient zero.
That was nasty.
Patient zero came from the lab experiments of a genetic drug therapy. Sounds familiar.
Oh, and just as a reference, by the way, the Black Death was a 50-50. 50% fatality rate.
I thought that was 1/3. But it was high.
There wasn't
just
that's specifically the people who get it, not the people who are infected and died, because I know 1/3 of Europe died before it burned itself out.
Right.
So not all of Europe got it before it burnt itself out.
Okay, that's a good point.
So, but 50% of the people
and there was more than just, there were several waves, because there was the Justinian plague that came earlier. I think there were 3 different waves of the bubonic plague that came through at different times that we know of. So all regular government programs have been suspended indefinitely. That was a bit chilling when that article or that report came out at the beginning. It's like, okay, you're on your own, buddy. What are you going to do now? So there are several things I liked and several things I didn't like in this movie, the second movie. One of the things I liked was the depth of emotion, just like in the first movie. Most of it made sense. What would happen in a dystopia like this? And the humans have lost control over their society while the apes develop their society. There's really, I think, an interesting contrast between the two. You see the fall of one and the rise of the other, hence the name Rise and Dawn. Then you had, I loved it when the son and the orangutan read together. This is one of the characters. He had a son that was in there, and they sat down, and there was that connection. Oh, I so badly wanted to see that connection between the two. It's like, just set something up here, guys. There's a possibility of these two races working together. Fear led the first ape, Ash, to be shot. Fear is what kept the humans and apes from working together. The thirst for revenge started the war. So these are all good elements, I think, that work together. What positive things did you see in here that made this second story, the second movie, work?
I think the real drive between wanting to see the connection, wanting to see both the apes and the humans kind of working together was something that was a drive. They definitely had that for a bit. And of course, that gets ruined because of stupidity, fear, and vengeance and hatred. Falls all into that, kind of got together and made it all fall apart.
Yeah.
In the end.
So there's a couple of good lines from Caesar. He says, "From humans, Koba learned hate, but nothing else." And he also said, "Ape always seeks strongest branch." Okay, there's some deep philosophy there. By the way, they took the audio engineers for this movie, and all 3 of them took to create Caesar's voice. They took Andy Serkis's voice and they morphed it, or they combined the sounds of several chimpanzees. I don't know if they added other apes to it to kind of round it out a little bit, give that guttural sound and everything. So there was some real thought that went behind that. What I didn't like about this movie is that I think there was a premise error. The humans see their only future was to get to this dam, to get to this hydroelectric dam working again. it's their only power source as the fuel runs out, and they say in 2 to 3 weeks our fuel is going to run out. Is that the only way that they can contact survivors? How do we know that they have how do we know that the other survivors have communications? Like, oh, if we can just get this dam working, we can use our ham radios, I guess, to
they're
do
using
it?
short range, more short range than ham radios.
Okay.
Because it was, in my response was, oh, cool, they got to have a ham radio set ready to go. And no, what they've got is like emergency sort of beacon thing. I don't know.
Why
It's
they use
like
a ham radio? Because you're right that they would have longer
ham
range.
radio. Yeah, it's all contained. The other, what they're using, to my knowledge, would have required some of the setup there to have more setup than what you would need for a ham radio. I mean, like, you have to have an actual antenna separate. Where you ham radio, you have that just right there all together. And ham radios, if you get it bouncing well enough, I mean, you could reach across the ocean and, get in contact with Asia, getting contact with
depending on what the environmental
United States
conditions are, right?
Yeah, because it
bouncing
really is determined by weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're on there constantly pinging,
so
you'll find someone.
You don't need hydroelectric power for that. If you got diesel generators.
No, they could have been doing that the entire time.
I didn't understand that. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, they should have been. That never made any sense, because they should have been immediately in communication as soon as power came on. They wouldn't be waiting for, oh, well, we need a consistent power to be able to do this. It's like, no, it's not like you need some huge power source in order to generate this, and your diesel engines just can't make enough. No, we could have done this from the beginning.
Yeah, and how does finding other survivors be their only hope? It might help them a little, but they have enough people to start a farming, fishing, mining community. There's enough genetic variation within that group that they had there. It looked like there was maybe a couple hundred at least.
Yeah, it might be that they're looking at, okay, we need an end goal. We need a common goal to work towards, or we're going to basically fall apart.
Yeah.
We do not have a common sort of cohesive goal in mind. Maybe that's what they were trying to say. Hey, they're going to work towards this. But I think they could have just done a much more basic one of, hey, we're going to build this community and make this community up as the thing that they're trying to do.
This is one of the reasons why I gave it a lower rating, because even though there was a lot of good dystopian questions that were wrestled with here, I don't think they had a good foundation. This is the primary goal that the humans they got to get this working. Now, to get a lot of make a lot of other things functional, yes. To have sustainable power, yes, you do need this. But to say it's the only way that we can communicate with others, no, you can actually survive without this. I mean, it's not gonna be nice, but you can survive.
And it wasn't like they were running out of any sort of resource other than fuel that they really wanted. Other than electricity, they didn't. It wasn't like they were saying, we're running out of food and we're going to, we only have like a month left of food.
That's the other thing too, is you would expect to see some kind of farm set up around here, because I would be more concerned about that. Say, okay, we ransacked the local Walmart and Dollar General and everything's the cupboards are bare, man.
Considering this takes place 10 years or so.
Yeah, they would be all gone
after.
Well, I don't know if all gone, but most anything perishable would have been gone. They would have been like living off of Little Debbie's or something like that at that point.
You might have some canned stuff that'd still be good by that point, but yeah, you'd have to have already established some sort of agriculture to be able to survive.
So I think this is a weak point. I think there's some things that they could have done to kind of fix this, to say that they had to get the power going. Maybe there was some medicine or some medical issues that they need to, something else that would make it. And the best thing would have been, and I was pulling the whole time, was like, guys, just establish some kind of trade route, at least with them.
Trade, yeah.
Work up trust, build trust over time.
Well, the whole thing was that they only got 3 days to get this generator, this dam up and working. And it's like, okay, first of all, you waited. You knew you were running out of fuel. You waited until you had 3 days left.
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
2 to 3 weeks.
I
No.
thought it said 3 days.
No.
Okay. You waited to this long to be like, okay, let's look for another power source now.
Yeah.
We thought this was endless supply of gasoline we had here, but oh no. I guess we never
gasoline does have a shelf life.
Like,
I don't
okay,
think
guys.
diesel. I don't think diesel does. So there was a couple of directing errors that were in here that were. This is not as serious, but this is just kind of points off to the side. And I don't mean to pick at the movie, but there's kind of some things that okay, come on, guys. One was sign language had become almost non-existent. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the apes, originally there, I believe he is being taught American Sign Language.
Yes.
Caesar is, right? But then you follow them and you're watching these apes. They would probably change their language, their hand signs would probably change over time. That they would, invent new signs and maybe make them a little bit easier for apes to do or whatever. But you're following them. There's like, you do something like this and you get an entire sentence out of one sweeping hand motion, or maybe even a little gesture of the face. It's almost like they're telepathic after a while. It's like you would expect some more gestures to be going on with these, but they're not. And also Kobo wild firing his guns while charging from horseback while not getting shot. That dude has some serious plot armor. And he's like anti-stormtrooper. His shooting ability is off the charts.
Yeah. Don't expect shooting ability to be anything in this. They're holding rifles one-handed, you know, like
big old
gangster style, and just unloading while riding horseback. Doing double with no hands on the reins, riding horseback. It's like he's hitting people.
He's backlit by fire, right?
Yeah, and
he's got a whole bunch of guys over there lining up. He's like the main guy to shoot, and these guys that are the humans are stormtroopers, right? And he's the anti-stormtrooper.
Yeah. So no, and the apes, all in all, a lot of them aren't firing rifles the way they're supposed to be. So you kind of get hit and miss.
And I never see the apes reload.
No. Never,
how would they know how to? Now maybe Caesar knows how to do this. Maybe he's smart enough to figure this out. He played with these enough. Maybe you can figure it out. But
unless you're taught, unless they were taught at some point, I see that as being hard sell on that.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna check comments here, and then we'll move on to the third movie, and then we'll talk about.
Real quick, I do have one last thing to say on this one after comments.
After comments.
Okay.
Christ, oportunidad. Don't let me down, dude. Don't let me down. Give me a good one here. It says, okay, but when we're going to make when are we going to make Planet of the Apes X Con X Godzilla X Lizard People crossover? Doggone it! Hollywood, don't let us down.
We need to have this movie.
We do. We need this movie. Why haven't they hired me yet? I don't know. They're just missing their oportunidad. Okay, sorry. Thomas Hall said, real world ape community is a combination of compassion and brutality. Don't tell me they're pacifists in the wild. Humans, when acting with brutality, are being more like animals. Ooh, interesting. So when the animals are acting more compassionate, they're being more human-like. Where these, they were. And I'm planning on saying giving some bringing this to light a little bit later here too. Is we're looking at the mythology of the noble savage, and this came up a lot in previous American literature in the last century. Is you have the idea that whatever is civilized is corrupt, and whatever is of nature is pure and peace-loving. And if anybody has ever worked in nature at all, worked with animals, that is not the case.
No, I'd say they kind of did. Maybe they had that. They definitely had that in Caesar, the noble savage concept. But then you have Kobo.
Yeah, you do have the mix.
He started the war.
Yeah.
He attempted assassination, started the war. This was completely on him. His decisions to do this. Now, yes, he was driven by his hatred because of the experiments done upon him by humans. You could pull that in. But in the end, that's still his decision to make. And because of that, there are issues even in the next movie from his decisions in this one.
Right. Yeah. So you do have in the human society, you have shown being mostly cruel, filled with fear. In the ape society, it's mostly compassion, brotherhood, community, with an aberration being good. In the human community, it's the aberration that is good. So I think you do have a good point there, and it's something that I was going to pull out earlier. So you did a good job. I would agree with you 100%.
Now, real quick before we continue, the scientists.
Yes.
That was super. Looking over at one point, he goes back to his home, where he grew up with the scientists, Caesar.
Oh, Caesar goes back to his original home.
Goes back to his original home in the movie.
Yes.
And that's where we get indications of what happened to his sort of adopted father.
To Will.
Yep.
Will Rodman.
It's primarily what gave me the indications when they went out to the porch. They're sitting down on the porch. On the back wall, you see a yellow X on the wall.
Oh.
And if you're familiar with history, definitely with the Black Plague, they would use, I think it was a red X to indicate the inhabitants of that household was infected with the Black Plague.
Okay.
So that's indication that maybe, and it was specifically shown later on as a sign. I wasn't able to make out what it said on the sign itself, but it looked like it was just a common sign that would be placed on a house. And it looked like, okay, he probably died of this.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Him and the girl.
If fatality rate was that high,
there's a strong
like
chance
99% fatality.
Yep.
Then yeah, he probably would have died with everybody else. Yeah. Sad, but
there is the conclusion of that. Now again, there's the irony there, being the one who actually made this thing.
Killed by
his own creation.
So we also have a couple other comments here. Isgul said infinite ammo cheat code unlocked. Yes, and infinite armor. And it's like Kobo just eventually just puts down, just riding around his horse and nobody's being able to shoot him. He just puts down his weapon and says, "This is boring. I want to stop." Airplay cheat code. It's like that, right? And then Christ Opportunity Dodge said, how many white-eyed apes in typewriters need to write Shakespeare? The answer is one. Definitely just one.
Yeah, if just one doesn't, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, would be. That's a good question, though. You're not letting me down with these comments here. All right. So, War for the Planet of the Apes. Spoiler warning, we're getting back into this too. If you're just joining us, please be warned that this is all spoiler section for these as we're preparing for the next release of this franchise, which is coming out Thursday. And we're going to be doing a review on Thursday evening. Is set. If everything works well, we will have seen the initial showing and we'll give you fresh from the theater review on that movie. Theatrical review for War of the Planet of the Apes. This came out in 2017. What I like, the two societies reminded me of the 19th century cowboys and Indians, even using sign language among the more native of the two groups. Several Native American tribes across North America historically use sign language as a means of communication, especially for intertribal communication or communication with non-native groups. Some of these tribes were the Lakota, Cheyenne, Crow, Navajo, and the Blackfeet. We see Caesar's transformation in this movie. This is different. This is the third one where it's different. So there is the conflict. We're in dystopia version. This is like 2 with everything set up like that. There is the conflict from humans. There is the misunderstanding. There's the back and forth. However, this time, it's not just simple misunderstanding. This is all out. They're looking to exterminate the apes. And Caesar is like going into revenge mode. And fortunately, he does not become the anti-hero. He realizes his mistake and then does find peace in the end. But I like Maurice's comments in here. Maurice is such a cool dude, played by a dudette. He says, now you sound like Koba.
Dun dun dun.
There are a few
That would be
times
harsh
when
one.
someone says something to you that cuts through the fog and gives you insights that you may not want to hear, but it's the truth. And this is one of these occasions, and it's very well done, very well played. Finding a home and a safe place for you and your family and your people to flourish. These are all good things in this movie. What did you like on this movie?
I'd say Bad Ape.
Bad Ape.
Bad Ape. Bad Ape's my favorite character.
Yeah, and that actually is his name in here, is Bad Ape.
Bad Ape. Is that actually what they gave?
They gave him, if you
Okay,
look at the
Bad
credits
Ape
for
it
this,
is.
Bad Ape. And yeah, so he was played by, and I don't see his name here.
And
Steve Zahn. And he's I don't have some of the other places he played, but he did a good job with that.
Good comic relief.
It was, and there was some tension there when he comes in the beginning and he steals from him, and you don't know who he was. And it looks like, I thought it was a woman who he originally stole from. I thought it was a woman based on the shape and everything like this, but it was another ape. And you do see now this interesting tension between here. At the beginning, the first movie, you want to see Caesar be able to connect to Will. Mm-hmm. Those two. You want those two to make that connection. Here, you want to see the connection between Bad Ape and the other apes there to have that connection. You want them to have that bonding. And then it comes through. What else were good points of this movie that you thought?
I think, again, Bad Ape really gives us a lot. Not so much just as a comic relief, but also insights into the world, into how this virus works. Because he's not part of the original group.
No, he's not.
He's not. He is part of another zoo that had this. So what we can deduce from that is that this disease that was spread around, this virus that was going around, jumping from human to human, could jump from human to ape. And vice versa.
Correct.
From ape to human.
Right.
Even though it was burning through the humans fast enough that probably wasn't really
any ape around the world.
Any ape around the world who survived the fall of humanity and could get out would be, in theory, intelligent. And
so that would help give credence to the fact that they could grow. One of the things that I thought was a plot error was that they were not able to, that there were too few apes at the beginning. Not that they were the massive numbers. I thought that they were off on the numbers on that. But you could say around the world, that this transmitted around the world, that there could be enough that would eventually, over 200, 300, 400, 1,000 years, you would see a much larger population.
Yeah, right. And for apes, specifically for chimpanzees, I think they become mature in 9 years, fully mature in 9 years on average, which is on average is a couple years sooner than humans. There are some variants of chimps and of primarily different apes that will mature faster than that. And that's critical, because if they all have this intelligence level, it's not just chimpanzees, because you have the silverback gorillas, you have all these other orangutans, all the other options as well. If you have the ability to be able to breed faster than your competition, say humans, you will outbreed them just because you can reinforce your own number. And that's one of the issues with the whole war concept, is if you have 5 humans die, how long does it take for the species to repopulate or replace those 5? Well, if you've got an enemy that can replace their 5 in half the time it takes you to do it,
right,
and get them up to snuff and be able to be combat worthy in a much faster time period again, you're at a huge disadvantage long term.
Right.
So that would be a bit of an issue for humanity.
Okay. That's a good point. There was also another good thing I thought was in here, that was Nova. She was the one who, the girl who was not able to speak. She was one that was infected by the virus, not able to speak. And And my speculation is that hits the speech center of the brain. So it was a physiological issue with the brain itself, not so much the vocal cords. To be able to, they still have the vocal cords, that they're not the speech. The apparatus to make the sounds is still there, but the connection to the brain, I think, is what was.
That's coming to the. That's based on speculation of the original series,
right?
Because in the original series, the ape does say study humanity, and they have all the physical body parts. I could tell it must be in the brain because they can physically speak. They just don't have the mental capacity for it. And I think that's really interesting in this one. It's, a different variant of the virus that then attacks it. I don't know why a virus would mutate this way. Let's say hypothetically it does. And because of it, it attacks that speech center in the brain. And it leads to a lot of issues. Humanity starts purging itself, leading to more human deaths, which, again, is a bit of an issue if you can't replenish the human gene pool there to begin with. You shouldn't be killing your own people off.
Right.
And that was one of the driving factors for the main evil character, the Colonel. And although I'm used to him having blue skin and mohawk, was interesting having
that wasn't him.
It wasn't him?
Nope.
I thought it was.
Nope.
Oh, darn.
Think Hunger Games. Think the.
Oh, him. Okay.
Yes,
Never mind.
Okay.
So I was wrong about that one.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So one of the other things I think was a strength here too was Nova as a character, and you see the compassion that Will had in the first movie to raise this ape, Caesar, on his own as a child, as a surrogate father, is now transmitted to Caesar, who has lost his son, who now has a chance to take a human under his wing. And the difference here is Caesar, who is struggling with his own rage, who is held out his hand to humans and say, I want to have this opportunity, a peace between us. I want this peace. I want this peace. And then just time and time again, having it battened down, it said, forget it. In order to protect my people, what I have to do wasn't so much a revenge thing. It was more of a protection thing as well. Is I have to get rid of the Colonel in order to protect my people. And there's really beginning to develop a hatred for humans. And that's where Marie says you become Kobo, but the child, Nova. She is what breaks the ice. When she comes in, it doesn't make any sense that she'd be able to walk into this military base just unseen like this.
No,
and walk back and forth. These guys are like,
oh my gosh, that hurt. That hurt. That was like,
but anyway,
it
was the theme driving the plot, and it was too much. But that compassion that she has, and she just in a very simple. In simplicity offers him food and water, and that breaks the ice for him. He does have that change of heart, so she is very instrumental in the movie. Very important piece. What I didn't like about this third movie, War of the Planet of the Apes, credibility issues, just like what I mentioned there. How many are there? How fast do they procreate? It seemed like it was too much. I don't think the numbers quite work out for that. That's okay. But there is no way a horse can hold the weight of a silverback gorilla.
Yeah, I felt so bad.
Full-grown male orangutan. You break his freaking back legs. We had, not us, but my mother and father-in-law own a farm, a beef farm, and they had a bull that got so big he broke when he tried to ride one of the heifers. That was the biggest heifer they had. He broke her back legs. So you can imagine the weight of a silverback, and that my kids were laughing. My kids were laughing when one of the apes grabs one of the other silverbacks, grabs the other silverback who doesn't have him, and helps him get back on this poor horse who now has to hold two 800-pound gorillas.
No,
it's not going to happen.
That's a lot.
But okay, it works.
That's a lot.
Christianity is evil.
That was...
According to this, it really did put Christianity in a bad light. The evil general, played by Woody Harrelson, has symbols of Christianity. Cross, a Bible, the name of their group, Alpha Omega, that we already talked about before, playing the Star-Spangled Banner after his troops chant in cult-like fashion. This is the throwback to Christian nationalism. Now, I'm not defending Christian nationalism, but they're really like, boom, this is evil. This is pure evil in its ultimate form of humanity. And I'm thinking, come on, guys.
And they were really pushing this. They had him refer to this as a holy war.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, it doesn't meet the definition in any way, shape, or form.
So he does, and I'm going to give the quote that you just mentioned. He says, "This is a holy war. All of humanity led to this moment. If we lose, we will be the last of our kind. This will become a planet of the apes." Dun dun dun.
Yeah, that was kind of a pushing.
Well, I don't.
Because you got okay. So the apes, fine. Yeah, you could easily have left the apes behind. In fact, he does at a certain point in order to go defend himself against his superiors who are coming to just wipe him out with overwhelming strength. He left the apes, and at that point, if they would have timed it right, they could have just snuck out. If they would just wait a little bit, let the humans go, they might have been able to sneak out.
Yeah,
the only reason that they were caught was just a lucky break for the humans to find them as they were trying to escape.
That's true.
So if they would have timed it better, they could have got out.
Yeah.
He was too distracted up north with this human versus human thing, and the whole holy war thing didn't make any sense at all. What religious doctrine are you going off of for this? And on top of that, you're already fighting humans on. It's obvious that this is not just a cohesive thing.
Yeah, having those apes as slaves to build a wall against those tanks are going to come in.
Tanks are just going to annihilate it.
This is not. Yeah, they're going to
obliterate. You're just putting rubble up on a wall. No.
And having the security risk of all these apes there at the same time, it didn't seem to go out of their way to get these apes to build this wall.
No.
It seemed far-fetched.
You could say that this guy's just gosh darn nuts.
You could say, okay, it doesn't make sense because he's nuts. Okay.
It doesn't make sense because he's nuts, strategically speaking. No, you have left the apes down there in order to defend yourself against this oncoming army. In fact, in him knowing how strong this army was coming, best thing for him would have been to evac. Get your butt out of there. You go on the run.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So I want to go over a theatrical review of the entire franchise. This trilogy is praised for its exceptional writing, acting, and story and character development, setting it apart from most reboots. And we're in like reboot hell, so to speak, with what's coming out of Hollywood right now. It's like they don't have a creative bone in their body to be able to make something fresh and new for the most part. I mean, there is some stuff that's coming out there.
And I'd say that these were definitely fresh and newer concepts as far as the series it goes. It's going off of the original, but it's not the exact same thing.
No. And then I think they handled this one well. This is what reboots should be. Each installment keeps momentum going and continuity, contrary to the usual decline of quality seen in other series. So you have the first one's really good and it goes boom boom, although I think the first one was better than the other two. As viewers were emotionally invested in Caesar's journey as he faces challenges, ultimately finds peace in his death, knowing that his legacy will live on through his fellow apes. The bond between Caesar, Maurice, and Rocket resonates deeply, evoking the sadness and hope, reflecting on the purity of their brotherhood despite being of different species. With Caesar's death, the continuity between all three movies dies. The production company called this the Caesar cycle. With this week's release of the fourth movie, which takes place hundreds of years later, I'm curious to see what the emotional connection will be. How are they going to carry this through? Can they carry this through? Or is this really going to be
if they were smart, there'd be the whole thing with Caesar and everything there will be myth, almost legendary status, iconic sort of legendary status, and referred to a lot. Driving force in a lot of things that happen throughout the series. Throughout the movie. At least that's how I would write it. So you're pulling. This is the aftermath of it now, because it is Disney.
Oh, yeah. So Disney
have
has,
my
has bought
reservations.
Fox. And so this was Fox, even the original. It was Fox, I believe, that did the original series, The Planet of the Apes. This is now in the hands of Disney, and we know how things generally go there. So I don't know. My expectations are actually kind of low for this, which might give it a good review afterwards, because you have low expectations and it might surprise you. So we'll see. We'll see what this is come Thursday. Thematic review. Thematic review of the franchise. This is the best part of our review, and we save it for last. How can the trilogy of movies like this be used to deliver a message of correction, instruction, and hope to a dying world? What themes do you see here that align with the Bible? I'm going to give two. I have two. This live stream has gone on long, and because we're covering 3 movies in this, and so it ends up being a lot longer than what our usual live streams are. And before I do this, I'm going to check the comments real quick. Epic foreshadowing. If we lose this, we will become a Planet of the Apes. I wonder who will win.
I don't know. Look at the title.
Yeah.
Look at the title.
It's kind of a dead giveaway. So the first theme that we're pulling out of this is, what does it mean to be human? Other than Koba and a few others, the apes in this trilogy are imbued with positive traits of trust, compassion, justice, self-sacrifice, and family. Most of the humans, in contrast, are ruled by fear, prejudice, and self-interest. Now, you have the exception of the humans that come out and bridge the gap, where it's the other way around, usually with the apes. We see this in Caesar's fateful line at the end of the second movie, when he reaches out to pull Koba up. Koba, the evil ape, not bad ape, but evil ape.
Evil ape.
And Koba quotes Caesar's mantra, ape, not kill ape. And Caesar lets him go and says, "You are not ape." Koba falls to his death. This is the difference between human nature and fallen nature. And this is a good thing to bring out, I think, as a theme here. We often say it's human nature is evil. Not actually, human nature originally was good, was pure. It was when we're in our fallen state that things were corrupted. We're created with good nature, faultless and sinless. But that nature was untested, and that's why the whole garden experience took place. And when it was put to a test, our ancestors failed. The choice to handle things their own way instead of God's way took over. And that choice was so deep and long-lasting that it affected the human genome. Since then, we have inherited their natural rebellion against God to go our own way. Fallen nature, one corrupted with selfishness, and all the negative attributes we see in these films. The apes, on the other hand, play the role of the noble savages, like I said earlier, pure and untouched by fallen nature, except for a few, like Koba, who were bent because of the cruelty of mankind. So you can bring out this as one theme of the fallen nature of mankind. That this is where all these evils are, and they can be a great discussion point. The second one is forgiveness. We see this in a lot of movies, but I think it's really, really emphasized in this one. Caesar continuously reaches out to other apes and to humans to bridge a gap and to make a better future. I sat watching this and yearned for some sort of mutual respect between the species. If we could just establish a simple trade route or science treaty, we could build trust. Caesar wanted that, but every time he trusted humans, he ultimately regretted it. Jesus said to forgive 70 times 7. But trust takes time to build. And in some cases, trust may never be restored. Even though forgiveness is there, trust may never be restored. In the end, that's what Caesar did. No matter how hard he tried, trust between their communities could not be forged, between the human and the ape communities. Instead, he led his people to a safe place, void of humans. Forgive and let go of revenge. Judgment and justice are in the hands of God, who knows all things. Those are my two themes. What did you have?
Very very basic on a couple of them. You've got, if you're just watching the first movie with someone, the search for home is a critical one.
Oh.
Where I belong, who am I, what am I? These are a lot of things that Caesar struggles with. Where he gets his identity from is something you can definitely pull out of that. And again, we get our identity from the only one who sees everything, all of us, and still chooses to love us in spite of ourselves. In spite of our fallen nature, he chooses to love us. The second one is the path of revenge. You could see that in Kobo and his desire to destroy humanity and take revenge. You can see how he chose that path and pursued it and was willing to try to get that at all costs, even if it caused him to kill his friend, even if it caused him to lead his own people in a war that caused lots of their death.
Right.
I don't know what the numbers were, but there were a lot of dead apes at the end of that. A lot of dead humans at the end of that. It was not a good situation. No. And in the end, it didn't obtain anything for his group in the end.
You know what?
In fact, it ended up doing the opposite because it ticked off more humans to come destroy more.
Yeah, I don't think he was interested in the group at all, really. No. He used Ash's death as the shooting of Ash as a justification to go against the humans. But then in the end, he kills Ash himself.
Yeah. So no, he didn't. You could see how just wanting revenge at any cost and wanting power can cause corruption and very bad. And then that mirrors the next movie, which you have again an ape who has had great loss, who needs to go out. And I think at the beginning it was a revenge thing. Later on, it became a rescue once he realized that his people were captured. But at the beginning, it was, I'm going to go take revenge. It wasn't, I'm going to stop these because they were evacuating, they were leaving. It's, I'm going to pursue them till I get my revenge. And at the end, he has an opportunity to take that revenge. He gives forgiveness instead and has a repentance moment and really does show the two different perspectives there. And I think it really works together quite well. And then you have him leading his people across the desert to the promised land and dying before entering the promised land.
Moses.
There's parallels to Moses there. So Caesar's Moses in a lot of ways, just no God.
So these are powerful movies with powerful messages that can be used for evangelism in these ways. I mean, you can see where these messages come out and you say, hey, look, guys, this is just like, and fill in the blank and bridge that gap there. Just as Caesar wanted to bridge the gap between the humans and the apes, we can also use these opportunities to help bridge the gap between those who are lost and those who, and then God himself. So bridging that gap. Of course, Jesus is the only bridge for that. He's the only one who laid that, but we can help point other people to that direction, that way. Coming up on Thursday, we will be doing a review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited about this. And we are going to be doing this
I'm nervous.
You're nervous? This might be a total flop. Who knows?
I'm nervous.
We're doing this not in the morning. This will be a live stream in the evening, and we may have a special guest with us depending on how things work out. I'm trying to see if we can pull this off or not. This will be in the evening. Tentatively, right now, it's set for 7 at 7 Eastern Standard Time on Thursday in the evening. And this will give us time individually to go see the movies and come back with our results and give you the feedback, hopefully, on this movie. Good, bad, in between, we'll see. So until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And if there's any coffee left, drink it slowly. And we'll see you later.
I chug.
You chug.